already received matches what we've lost in revenue for the year, just right around $2 million. So if we break even, we're going to be very lucky.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Okay, no more comments? All right, I move to forward this ordinance to council for its first reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Bryant. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that ordinance will be forwarded to council for its first reading. Second item on the agenda is an ordinance to enter into an agreement with Limbach Company LLC using monies from the CARES Act Fund for COVID-19 pandemic-related expenses of the city of Reynoldsburg, waiving competitive bidding and declaring an emergency. The ordinance will be brought forward as a single read emergency ordinance. Mayor Begany.
Members of council, Chair Salvati, this is being brought to you for basically the use of air purifying systems that are portable. That way we can move them to the locations that we need them most. A couple of highlights for these particular things. They will basically be treating the air with UV light treatments as well as bipolar ionization. They will be used to move around so we can actually put them in wherever they're needed. If it's RPD, if it's City Hall during court days, if it's eventually when we reopen the senior center, we can use them at that location as well. The reason for the emergency read is the amount of turnaround time that is needed to get these items in. As you heard the auditor speak, everything not only has to be spent by a certain date, but the items actually have to be in possession by the end of the year. And to make sure that we meet that 6-week deadline, that's why we are asking for an emergency read.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation?
I do have a question.
All right.
So, Mayor, I know you mentioned about this, this piece of equipment is going to be portable. How many are we actually planning on purchasing? And then if we have the funds, right, could we purchase more so we don't have to do that portable, I guess? That's my question.
We did look into a number of different options. We are looking at 8 items right now. We did look at actually bringing in an in-house ionization and UV lighting system into City Hall, RPD, as well as the senior center, but the cost on those items was significant. I believe all of them added up would be in excess of $500,000, which at that point in time when we looked at it, it was prohibitive for us to spend that kind of money on these particular items. With the portable units, it will give us the opportunity to maintain some of the services that we need where we're there. RPD has put in a certain request for numbers as well as what we're looking at City Hall as well as the senior center, and we feel that that's an appropriate number. Anything more than that is we don't know if we would use them as needed, given the amount of space that they would cover, and we would hate to spend more on items and not get the good use out of them.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from the committee?
Just to clarify, did you say 8 units?
Is it 8 or
It says
10?
20.
20. There we go. That's
Okay.
the numbers are floating in my head. I apologize.
So
Yeah,
20 units, and then what do the filter replacements look like? Because obviously these will be something we'll have for quite some time. Do they last a year? Do we expect the filters to be readily accessible,
Yep.
usable beyond?
Looking at the filters right now, it's again filtered with the MERV 8 filter, then passes through the HEPA filter with a gasket seal. It does not, of course, say how long those live. Do you remember the amount of time that it would take? I don't believe it was anything. Yeah, there was nothing that was going to be something that was going to put an excess cost to the city in that regard. There's not, obviously, in comparison to the cost of the unit itself. But I can get that information for you first thing tomorrow.
All right, seeing no more discussion, I move to forward this ordinance to council for a single read emergency. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Baker. Any final discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. This ordinance be forwarded to council for a single read emergency approval. That concludes the Finance and Administration Committee meeting. I return the meeting to President Jenkins.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, item 11 is legislation for emergency approval. Would the clerk please read item 11A?
An ordinance to enter into an agreement with Limbach Company LLC using monies from the CARES Act Fund for COVID-19 pandemic-related expenses for the city of Reynoldsburg, waiving competitive bidding and declaring an emergency.
Councilmember Savati?
Thank you, President Jenkins. This ordinance comes from the Finance and Administration Committee, and I move to approve this ordinance as a single read emergency.
May we have a second? Councilmember Bryant? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Pecoro?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe?
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner?
Aye.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Councilmember Bryant?
Aye.
And Councilmember Strickland?
Aye.
Councilmember Salvati?
Aye.
Madam President, that was 7-0.
Ordinance 11A is approved, 7 affirmative votes and no negative votes. Item 12 on the agenda is the consent agenda for first reading. Items 12A are part of a consent agenda. This ordinance will stand for a first reading unless someone would like or need to have it removed. Will the clerk please read item 12A?
An ordinance to appropriate a yet undetermined amount from the CARES Act Fund to be used for payroll expenses for public safety employees whose services were substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency and declaring an emergency.
This ordinance stands for a first reading. Item 13, consent agenda for a second reading. Items 13A through C are part of a consent agenda. All of these ordinances stand for a second reading. Would the clerk please read items 13A through C?
Item A, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Media Promotion Enterprises, MPE, for the 2021 Tomato Festival. Item B, an ordinance from the Reynoldsburg City Council supporting the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, project to resurface US Route 20 and other related improvements in Franklin County. Item B, an ordinance authorizing renewal of the city's dental insurance coverage with Delta Dental for the period from January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2022, waiving competitive bidding.
These ordinances stand for a second reading. Item 14 on the agenda, consent agenda for third reading and approval. Items 14A through F are part of a consent agenda. All of these ordinances stand for a third reading and approval. Would the clerk please read items 14A through F?
Item A, an ordinance authorizing the city auditor to remove equipment from the city's fixed asset list for the Parks and Recreation Department. Item B, an ordinance to dissolve Reynoldsburg Economic Development, Inc. and the former Reynoldsburg Community Improvement Corporation and transfer any remaining funds to the general fund of the city to be distributed for charitable purposes. Item C, an ordinance authorizing the city auditor to remove equipment from the city's fixed asset list for the Reynoldsburg Police Department. Item D, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign the project grant loan agreement with the Ohio Public Works Commission for the East Main Street roadway improvements. Item E, an ordinance assuming maintenance responsibility for the full width of Summit Road between the southernmost boundary of parcel number 010-018030-00.001 and the northernmost boundary of parcel number 001-018-030-00.3000 upon annexation of said parcels into the city of Reynoldsburg, agreeing to cooperate and in the maintenance of said roadway and indemnifying the township of Etna and Licking County. Item F, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation to implement coverage for individuals sentenced by the Reynoldsburg Mayor's Court and to perform community service supervised by the Criminal Justice Administrator.
May I have a motion to approve items 14A through F on the consent agenda for a third reading and approval? Councilmember Strickland, may I have a second? Councilmember Baker, would the clerk please call the roll?
Question first.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. On item 14B to the funds from Ready, that last dollar amount was 300 and some dollars. I can't remember what that amount was. that
It's
we-
$354.
354. And will that come back? I mean, I know we talked about where was that going to go. We talked about Heart, we talked about Helping Hands. Is there
I don't think we made that decision yet, but it comes back to the general fund first, and then we're required to get that out for charity per state statute.
so we'll bring that back and tell us who it's going to go to. I mean, again, I know we said it's going to go to a local charity. I know we talked about several different things, but we never finalized and
We had
talked
not.
about it again. So I just wanted to make sure where those dollars were going, who was going to get that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
May I have a second?
That was Councilmember Baker.
You already had it.
I'm sorry.
I've already seconded.
Oh, you did? Okay, thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Pecoro.
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe.
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner.
Aye.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
Councilmember Bryant.
Aye.
Councilmember Strickland.
Aye.
And Councilmember Salvati.
Aye.
Madam President, that was 7-0.
Thank you. Ordinances A through F are approved, 7 affirmative votes and no negative votes. Item 15 is legislation for a third reading. Would the clerk please read item 15A?
An ordinance creating the Wagoner Road Tax Increment Financing Initiative districts, declaring improvements to the parcels within each incentive district to be a public purpose and exempt from real property taxation, requiring the owners of those parcels to maintain service payments in lieu of taxes, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of those service payments, and specifying the public infrastructure improvements that benefit or serve parcels in the incentive district.
Attorney Shuck, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Council President. This item was passed at the last meeting as part of the third reading consent agenda. I have to take responsibility for that. I did not notice it was in the third read consent agenda. We are required by state statute to wait 30 days after the public hearing before you can vote on a TIF ordinance. That the public hearing was held on September 14th. So the vote you took at the last meeting is void ab initio under state law, and you do have to re-vote on it.
Yeah, just revote.
Okay, so we should
Pass
continue
it.
with the vote.
Yeah, because
Okay.
we're past the.
May I have a motion to approve 15A for a third reading and approval? Councilmember Baker? May I have a second? Councilmember Strickland? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Pecoro.
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe.
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner.
Aye.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
Councilmember Bryant.
Aye.
Councilmember Strickland.
Aye.
Councilmember Salvati.
Aye.
Madam President, that was 7-0.
The ordinance 15A is approved, 7 affirmative votes and no negative votes. Item 16 on the agenda is other council matters. Does anyone on council have any further items that they would like to discuss this evening? Yes, Mayor Begany?
Yes, I just looked up the information for Councilmember Cotner. The average life expectancy of one of the filters is anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending upon use. Average filter cost is around $120-ish. You're welcome.
Yes, Councilwoman Meredith Lawson Rowe?
Sorry. Thank you, President Jenkins. I would just like to publicly thank all those that were involved, and I don't know, so I don't want to speak names other than our clerk of council for putting all measures in place for us to be able to come back in person. It is nice to be back in person so that I can see your faces outside of the boxes. Now we're just inside plexiglass boxes, so thank you, clerk.
Yes, Councilmember Baker.
Two things. One, I would like to thank the Reynoldsburg Community Association for the trunk or treat that they had this past week. Heard it was a great event. A lot of people, more than expected, showed up. My wife brought my kids, and she was in that line, but you know. But anyway, and also I want to keep with my tradition of thanking our police services, our firefighters, those who are in the medical field, and those who are working in retail and the logistic industry, because we know those are the ones that are helping keep us moving through this pandemic. So I just want to keep with tradition and thank them when I get a chance.
Do we have any other comments from council? Upcoming meetings, council anticipates continuing with in-person meetings. Unless there's no other further business this evening, this meeting is adjourned at 7:13. Is that a record? I'm sorry? I said you look great. So I was able to fit in. Are you? Yes, I'm desperate.